Great. Thanks, Saurabh. I think, yeah, it is really important, to drive these various segments as per the needs, and then how it ends up at the end. I think is only time will tell. Like you said, in the next 2-3 years, when we'll be able to settle on this. Touching on some of the points that you mentioned as risks, that takes me to you, Rajiv. So one point that I would like to take up with you is, considering we're adapting at fast pace, and there is a lot of risks involved. What are the challenges that organizations have to overcome in their process to adapt these changes, and how does one make sure that the overall customer interaction is not impacted while we are transitioning?
Thanks, Harsh, and thanks, Saurabh, for setting some context on the technology and types of technologies which are causing the confusion or adding to the complexity of the environment. I think that would be my first point. If we were to talk of digitization overall in the business, and we were to take last 1 decade, it took 6 months to adapt to the digital level of digitization which we could not do in the last 9 years, thanks to the pandemic. Yeah. So that's the first stage. Any change is always resisted unless you're pushed into it. So that's one aspect of how do you have a change driver, or do you have a change agent or a transformation agent in your organization? That's one question you have to ask yourself as somebody who wants to drive a new technology intervention. The resistance will come from existing guys, because the newer technologies do have its own complexities. You're not sure what is the kind of architecture, you're not sure what are the kind of components which are built inside, what could be the risk of the data, which very well covered by Saurabh. So my data is going to get in. We were trying to do some pilot for one large enterprise, one of the top companies in the country and globally as well. Even getting the pilot started was a huge risk. They were not even wanting to share their calls. Now, how do you get cracking? We don't want to send our data to a third-party server. So those are the kind of resistance which were coming in, and this was more from an operations team who does not have so much of technological depth than the actual technology team. So that's where is the first challenge which we will have to try and overcome. So getting the understanding of the tech to the technology team and to the operational team in terms of how it works and what it happens. The other challenge which I've seen, which translates into it, what will be the impact on the current tech infra? Give you a very simple example. About a year back, we rolled out Office 365, and the moment the teams start kicking up, most of the laptops gave up, because they were all 4 MB, and nowhere while we were rolling out, Microsoft said that you need an 8 MB RAM. As simple as that. So then we had to sort of get on and upgrade and everything. But first reaction of the people who started using was negative, because the experience was bad. This does not work. No, it slows them down. So then getting that change implemented was itself a huge. So imagine this technology which actually sits into your core and impacts your customer experience, will impact your process efficiency, would have a huge impact on your business. If there is something which kind of stops working, and then there is huge risks which are attached to this. So I think you have to be very sensitive to that. The biggest challenge which I have seen is the middle management, both from a technology side and from the operations side. There is a sense of uncertainty or confidence or understanding. There is a huge resistance from that base. Unless they're driven into it from the top, that challenge will always remain. They will also have to be got into confidence that the risk to them is not as much as the benefit to them. So in our journey, when we talk to customers, the first we hit is the middle management, how it is going to benefit them. How will they become the heroes in their organizations? How will they sort of, how will it impact even their career growth? So that you're rolling out a new technology, you're learning something. You will be a sort of after resource maybe in years from now when you implement 2 projects like that. So those are the things which we need to sort of motivate that band of people and give them a fairly confidence more from operational side rather than just the technology side. And the business manager which I've seen, there is definitely, the use cases are not many in their own environment, which they can see and experience and sort of go and evaluate how it will fit into their own environment. And hence, there is a certain level of resistance which comes in because of that. Because will I fail? What will happen? How will it impact my process efficiencies? Will it take longer, or will it take impact my customer experience? So some of those elements, the fear of the middle management is something which I would re-emphasize needs to be handled. The uncertainty of the customer experience impact, especially when your customer is a very diverse group of people. For example, in a B2C environment, in a CPG or an automobile or similar kind of, you have in the India context, the lingual diversity, the geographical diversity, the social diversity, that itself, how each of these people will impact. A lot of customer base may not even be able to use the technology which you are offering on because of the equipment or the method they use to reach out to you. So even your own network may not be adaptable. So there will be a rollout period which will be much longer. So how will it impact the entire value chain is which we need to sort of look at. The other point which I have seen is most of these new technology are resource heavy. And when I say resource heavy, it's not just about the money, the kind of resources they need, which again puts a resistance for deployment, because there will be a cost which will going to be upfront. There will be cost which is going to be a parallel run. So there will be a bulge which will happen, and then it will start showing benefit as we go along and then settle down. And to that, I think one of the arguments which I always give, that when you set up a business, you have to invest, and then you get the returns on it. So this is exactly like that. You have to invest upfront for you to start benefiting and getting the returns on that. But this cost, which is a risk to them because of the earlier mentioned uncertainties, will always remain a resistance which we need to come up and handle it when we are rolling out any such transformation program. And it's not just about rolling out technology. Any transformation program, any change will always have resistance coming up to you. So to sum it, I would say, one, the understanding of the technology, the architecture, the data security part across the technology group as well as the business group. The second part is the biggest resistance drivers would be your middle management. How do you handle them and how do you bring them into the loop? And third part is definite understanding of customer experience. How will it impact the customer experience across the diverse group? So while we say that let's say conversational AI will give us will handle a large number of calls, but only a certain number of calls will go, or a degree of difficulty where it is high will go to the agent. Now, that is something which still have to be demonstrated or shown to them. This is how it work in my environment. It's all about my environment and my risk and my customers, and across the various types of customers. So I think overall, we are talking of large enterprises which are still be able to take some challenges, but mid-size will still take some time for them to follow the deployment of some of these technologies.
Right, and I think you touched on a key point, Rajiv, that touched upon the middle management and the acceptance within. I think key is when you're going to pass on such changes and bring in such interventions, to your customers. I think first step would be to set it up internally and get it right, and have your people accept it first and then passing it on. I think only then will the customers be able to believe in it also. You touched upon a certain aspect in terms of, cost and ROI. So I'd like to ask you, what are the implications and cost with these changes that you're bringing about, with the increasing technology intervention for an organization?
See, it's in your larger game, where does this sit? Defines the cost implications. So are you looking at immediate gains and short-term gains, or are you looking at a very strategic shift in terms of the way you handle your business, the way you are handling your customers, and what you see a 2-year or a 3-year or a 4-year scenario? Accordingly, the cost really will come into the question. So for example, there is a client of ours. They have set aside a huge budget purely for digitization across programs. So it could be digitization in their customer-facing programs. It could be back-office programs. So that's an amount they've set aside. This is something which you want to try, because the future of organization has to move away from people dependence. Now, it's a strategic shift. So they have created a team at the CEO's office who's driving this entire program and managing this entire budget. Now, that's where the cost will come into play. Now, if you are able to build the value, there will be image, as I said, there will be cost upfront, and there will be by the nature of technology, the cost is high because they are resource heavy technologies. If you can come up with a technology which is easy to deploy, easy to demonstrate, and a use case can be shown, the acceptability will be faster, and the cost allocation could be easier then in that case.
Got it. Thanks, Rajiv.